Hey, true crime fanatics, this is Claire.
And I'm Andy.
You're tuned in to the Homicide Hobbies podcast, which is a podcast for people who love to hear about the horrendous crimes that people commit. Enjoy.
The place we'll be in today served the first ever ice cream sundae in 1881.
Ohio.
This place is known as the bratwurst capital of the world.
Germany.
The first hydroelectric plant was built in 1882. This place is said to have more ghosts per square mile than any other place.
Still Germany.
No, today we'll be in Wisconsin.
I was close.
And as for the hydroelectric plant, I left off the small detail of it was the first one built in the United States. So there's possibility built elsewhere, but I wasn't going to tell you it was in the United States.
Clearly, because Andrea cheats. Anyway.
I didn't cheat.
What year?
Didn't say. It was a cold, drizzly morning in March 2018 when a young woman appeared at the edge of a farmhouse in rural Wisconsin. Mud clung to her bare feet, her clothes were torn, her hands and arms were smeared with blood. She was terrified, trembling, and desperate for help. She called out for anyone, for a doctor, and for one man in particular, someone she said she trusted, someone she said she loved.
For Paul?
This young woman said her name was Monica Carlin. Due to her ordeal, she forgot that she changed her name and now goes by Ezra J. McCandless. Ezra was a young woman crying out for help after she had been attacked. Today I'm going to tell you Ezra's complex story, the 20-year-old girl who seemed to have been hunted, and the shocking truth she hid. Her story is one that begins with compassion, fear, and survival, and ends with betrayal, deception, and murder. The world sees what it wants to see. And in the early hours of March 22nd, 2018, it saw a woman who needed saving. Ezra stumbled onto the porch of the Sipple farmhouse, and she was crying, barefoot, shaking, and bloodied. She begged for help, telling the farmer she'd been attacked by someone she knew. She was incoherent with fear. She seemed to be going into shock, and she was struggling to explain what happened. Unable to recall the precise sequence of events, she kept repeating the same thing while sobbing. He tried to kill me. Paramedics arrived. They wrapped her in blankets, they checked her vitals, and began documenting her wounds. Ezra whispered about a knife, about a fight, and about a man who'd overpowered her in her own car. The emergency room was a blur of nurses, medical equipment, and flashing lights. To everyone who saw her that day, Ezra was the very picture of trauma. She underwent a sexual assault exam, also referred to as a SANE exam, because she said she couldn't even remember if she'd been sexually assaulted.
Oh.
The victims' injuries to their entire body are documented, not just their genitals. For Ezra, the examiner noted abrasions and lacerations to various parts of her body. One injury among the many that stood out was on her left arm. A word had been cut into her flesh. What word? B-O-Y.
What?
Right. The doctor referred Ezra to the psychiatric unit to receive some special attention. She had no recollection of what had happened to her. And while in the psych ward, Ezra told the detectives that she had gone to Owen Park with a man named Alex Woodworth. She told detectives Alex was her ex, but after going to the park, her memory was just gone. She simply couldn't remember anything, including where they could even find her car or where she last saw Alex. She told anyone who would listen that she had fought for her life, that she had barely escaped. She described a chaotic struggle, the kind of desperate encounter that leaves a person shaken but alive. And the town rallied around her. Friends, neighbors, even strangers all saw a story of a girl in peril.
Did she do it to herself and make it all up?
No. Before she was Ezra, she was born Monica Kay to a 14-year-old mother on October 6, 1997.
I was going to ask because the only Ezras I've known were boys.
Same. But she looks like a girl. I'll send you a picture later, but...
Well, I guess there's like the whole Ryan, Taylor...
Yeah. Jamie.
Oh.
I've known both boy and girl Jamies, but...
You know hermaphrodite?
I said Jamies.
Well, some of them are they.
Anyway, so Ezra was born to a 14-year-old mother on October 6, 1997. She was raised in her grandmother's house until her mother...
Was 18?
And I don't know how to say her mom's name. Rosalina married Joshane Carlin in 2001. Though the marriage only lasted 10 years, Joshane adopted Ezra and remained an involved father figure.
How old? You said 18?
No, I told you
How old is the mom when she moves out? And so I have some sort of an idea how old she was when whoever this feller is adopted her and that marriage didn't last long.
So if she was 14 in 1997 and they got married in 2001, that would be 4 years. So, yes, right around the time she turns 18, she moves out and got married to this feller. So that means at around 28 years old, she got divorced from that feller. But this is her mom. It doesn't matter.
I was curious for her sake that at what point does he come in and out of her life, whether she'll have any memory of that. I wasn't asking for the curiosity of what her mother's doing.
That would make her around 4 when her mom marries him. But they get divorced and he stays in Ezra's life. Ezra started high school as Monica Carlin, and during this time, she began to explore her gender expression. By the time she settled on her pronouns, which we're not going to use because I think it's going to make this case extremely difficult to follow, but she decided to go by they, them. And I'm not doing that because during a trial, she went by her and she. But anyway, and that's when she decided to start renaming herself, and she chose the more gender neutral name Ezra. Ezra was known for being artistic and a nature loving free spirit. She took the surname McCandless after Chris McCandless. He was the man the book and the movie Into the Wild are based on. After she turned 18, she decided to legally change her name, her appearance, and her identity. Friends described her as creative, moody, attention seeking, and someone who could command focus in any room. She had a history of emotional turbulence, shifting relationships, and a desire to control the narrative of her own life.
Doesn't everybody?
Yeah, but hers is on a no, actually, because I feel like you and I go above and beyond for our significant others and our families. So, it's about her. She's one of them. Upon graduating from high school, the newly official Ezra enrolled in college with hopes of studying art. However, she left after just 1 year. Faced with her parents' demands for both employment and assistance around the house, Ezra decided her parents were expecting too much from her. She didn't want to work or do them chores.
She didn't want to load those dishes in the dishwasher.
She didn't even want to flush her own poop down the toilet.
Well, that lever took a lot of pounds per square inch.
Instead, she chose the unconventional route of surfing on friends' couches and occasionally sleeping in her car.
So she smells.
Probably so. Eventually, her meandering journey led her to the college town of Eau Claire, Wisconsin.
Is that how you found it? You missed me.
Chardade. It was there that I suppose you could say fate intervened during a serendipitous encounter on a bench in front of Racy Delene's coffee shop, bringing her face to face with Jason Mingle. At this point, Ezra was 19 when she began a relationship with 33-year-old Army medic Jason Mingle. Jason was head over heels for Ezra. I'm talking, he called her wife and she would call him husband. But just to clarify, they were never married.
How far into their relationship were they doing that?
Not far, because they're not together too long.
So he forgot her name.
Or he just didn't want to call her a boy's name. But just to clarify, like I said, they were never married. It was just simply their pet names for one another, although they had discussed marriage, and they also began living together because I guess he pitied her and she was sleeping in her car, so.
He collects strays.
Sure does. But Ezra's romantic life was very complicated. Jealousy, betrayal, and obsession were common threads for her. She often manipulated emotional situations, telling conflicting stories depending on who her audience was. And while dating Jason, Ezra met Jason's friend, 23-year-old Alex Woodworth.
Uh-oh.
Alex Woodworth worked as a barista at the coffee shop where Ezra had met Jason.
I thought baristas were girls.
Well, what is it, a barista? I think a barista is just the job.
Barrister?
I don't know.
Like a waiter, waitress, a barista?
I don't know. Anyway, Hay worked in the coffee shop where Ezra had met Jason. Alex was also a substitute teacher. He had aspirations of becoming a philosophy professor, and he was the oldest of 4 siblings. He had a small circle of friends and roommates. Descriptions of him portray him as an intelligent, quiet young man who was thoughtful and caring. His friends said he could be introspective, sometimes awkward, and perhaps a bit naive.
These friends are not very nice with their descriptions of their people.
Sure not. Alex had no significant criminal history and public record, no history of domestic violence or substance abuse. His life in many ways appeared, for lack of a better word, ordinary. Quickly, Ezra and Alex became really good friends. Alex was deeply committed to helping his new friend because she seemed to be going through some things emotionally. And her boyfriend, Jason, didn't mind Alex stepping in to help her,
She was a lot to handle.
pretty much. Jason knew Ezra and Alex had similar viewpoints on things, and they both seemed to just sort of get one another.
Mm-mm.
So Alex had some things in his life that Jason figured Ezra could help him with, and vice versa. Alex could help Ezra with things going on in her life.
Mm-mm.
But not everything is as it seems. And much like your uh-ohs, it sounds like you could see this coming, but Ezra and Alex quickly became more than friends and began a secret romantic relationship.
Oh, gee. Surprise. Didn't see that.
But her boyfriend Jason found out. He dropped Ezra like a sack of hot potatoes.
What about his friend?
Mm-mm. They stayed friends.
I think that's weird.
Same. For 8 months, she continued to try to apologize for cheating on Jason and sleeping with his friend, because she was really sorry. She wanted him back. And if Jason would come back, then she would be done with Alex. Right?
But if you're not going to come back to me, I'm going to stay with him, though.
Ezra was desperate.
Mm.
She would try to claim she was a victim. She was manipulated by Jason's vindictive friends telling her lies to try to take her away from him. It wasn't Ezra that did all this to their relationship, it was these men. By late February 2018, Alex was also an ex of Ezra's. So they got together just long enough to break up her and Jason. Her love life was causing me anxiety trying to unfuck who she was fucking.
Oh, Andrea.
These menfolk were overlapping, and it was like, I don't know how people that are cheaters can
Just exchange the penises.
or vaginas, whatever. But around that
Which feller had a... No, I don't want to know.
around that time, she claimed she was sexually
Sexually?
around that time she claimed she was sexually assaulted by one of Jason's other friends.
Oh. Well, he probably got confused because she's just throwing it around.
So Ezra reported the assault to police. In her complaint to the detective, Ezra said March 1st, 2018, her and this mutual friend were drinking alcohol and getting really, 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 like really tipsy, and she blacked out. To me, you don't,
That's not tipsy.
right? I was like, that's shit-faced drunk, and that's bad decisions right there. Not on getting raped, but like
No, yeah.
waking up the next day is going to be a real
You
pain.
should be able to get drunk as a skunk and not be raped.
Right, but I was saying, like, the waking up the next day and feeling like shit.
Yeah.
But at that point, Ezra had claimed that the guy took advantage of her when she blacked out, and
How does she know?
I guess she woke up without her drawers on. The detective believed Ezra's version of events. That is, until he read suggestive messages Ezra had sent to the feller she claimed assaulted her. At that point, the detective was like, maybe there's a little more to this than meets the eye. So the detective talks to Ezra's friends, one of which being Alex, her ex. Alex told the detectives that Ezra told him she willingly slept with the guy. In fact, not only was it
So
willing,
she just had regrets?
exactly.
You can't do that, ladies.
Perhaps she later had regret with sleeping with yet another one of her.
One of his friends?
Yes, but that's not rape. That's, like you said, it's called regret. And I think she should have been charged with filing a false police report.
For sure.
But Ezra thought the idea of her being raped would make Jason run to be by her side. And her manipulation worked because Jason was by her side. Her plan to win Jason back worked, that is, until it didn't. Her plan actually failed miserably when the detective needed more information, so they reached out to Jason. And it was during that interview that Jason learned Ezra had accused him, okay, the guy she's supposedly trying to earn back, accused him of being controlling and even abusive.
All right.
So Jason was stunned. This wasn't just a lie, it was a lie designed to destroy him as well as his friends. And for the first time, Jason saw clearly that Ezra wasn't just hurting people, she was rewriting reality to suit whatever story she needed in that moment. The sexual assault case was ultimately dropped thanks to Alex's statements. And Ezra was pissed. She was livid.
It's because she nearly got her number one sausage.
Right, but she's willing to have some guy thrown in jail over it.
I don't understand people who do that.
It's disgusting. So Ezra's livid, and that was it. Jason finally cut ties, telling her he wanted nothing more to do with her crazy ass. Ezra's last chance to win him back had slipped through her fingers, and in her mind, there was one person to blame for all of it: Alex Woodworth. With the new name and reputation she'd built for herself now tarnished and crumbling around her, Ezra packed up and moved back to her family.
What was the time frame
It was about 8 months.
that all of this is happening? That she's just
Yeah.
bouncing one dude to the next?
Uh huh. And she claimed that rape story March 1st, 2018. And I don't expect you to remember, but when she shows up bloodied on the porch, it was like March 22nd, 2018. So
I was just making sure I wasn't making it a short timeline when it wasn't, but it was.
it's an incredibly short timeline. Now that Jason has finally seen the light and told Ezra that what she thinks are little white lies build and build and build and become horrifying things happening to those around her.
Well, and she really doesn't give any shit
She really doesn't.
to what she's doing to other people.
Not to mention, that's an unhealthy level of obsession that she has with him.
Mm-hmm. I feel like that's the smallest potato in this story.
That's your backstory on the dramatic life of manipulation of Ezra that she's creating for herself. And that brings us up to the events I told you about in the beginning, where Ezra turns up on the farmer's property, bloodied, appearing to be in shock, battered, bruised, clothes torn, sliced up with a knife, telling officers she was attacked by her ex, Alex. She didn't know where her car was or where Alex was, and she begged the paramedics to contact her one true love, Jason, because Jason was the only person who could make her feel better. Which, by the way, this all occurred, like I said, within 3 weeks of that rape allegation being dropped
Mm.
and Jason telling her to pack her shit and get the hell out. The following day, after she's been put in the psych ward, they've treated her injuries and they're just trying to figure out like what all happened. It's March 23rd. The officers are investigating the scene where Ezra had been found, and the investigators became confused when forensic details began telling a story a bit different than the one Ezra was telling.
Oh,
Interesting.
that's surprising.
Footprints in the mud suggested movements inconsistent with her version of events. In the evening of March 23rd, law enforcement had followed those little muddy footprints from the farmer's house and they found her car. In doing so, police discovered Alex Woodworth. Alex was deceased.
Oh,
He was positioned halfway outside of the rear door of the vehicle. He had been stabbed 16 times. Law enforcement found a knife as well as Alex's smashed phone in a ditch along the roadway leading to that farmer's home. Blood evidence was largely outside of the vehicle, contradicting her claims of a struggle in the back of the car.
that poor feller.
Items at the scene suggested to the investigators that the entire situation had been staged. As the investigation deepened, detectives discovered more inconsistencies in Ezra's story. The detectives returned to the source. They went to the psych ward and they talked to Ezra. They learned that the doctors were holding her on a psychiatric hold because they believed her injuries, specifically the word boy being carved into her arm, was
Self-inflicted.
Yep, was self-inflicted. Witnesses provided contradictory accounts of her movements on the night of the supposed attack. Security footage placed her at locations she'd not mentioned to police. The knife used in the fatal attack was actually traced back to her father's home.
Oh,
The narrative began to unravel, but at first, no one wanted to believe it. Everyone else still sees Ezra as a terrified girl because they're not allowed to know what's going on during an active investigation.
right.
During the interview conducted on March 24th by two detectives, Ezra was sticking to her trauma induced amnesia story.
She's doubling down.
She stated she didn't remember anything beyond going for a drive with Alex just to talk about the relationship and to return some of his belongings to him.
Sure.
Realizing they're getting absolutely nowhere, eventually one of the detectives was like, "All right, so just so you know, we found Alex and he's dead." And you know what? Suddenly, she was cured. Ezra regained all her memories in that moment.
Hmm.
She then tells the detectives a new story of what happened, expressing it was really, really painful to talk about.
Hmm.
Ezra's version of events: she had to fight for her life.
Hmm.
Alex grabbed her by her throat, pinned her down in the back seat of the car, cut her with a knife. And then she said at that point she's able to grab the blade of the knife.
What part of this story did she go southern?
I don't know. I can't do a Wisconsin accent.
Just pretend you're eating cheese.
So talk with my mouth full?
I don't know.
Anyway, she said at that point she was able to grab the blade of the knife and gain control of it.
What? And weirdly, it also carved Boy in her arm. He's real good with the knife.
And she was forced to repeatedly stab Alex in the neck,
Oh.
the head,
Oh.
the torso,
Oh.
and his groin.
Oh. Well, that was some wild stabbery.
Uh-huh. The detectives, I feel like, just blinked at her and were like, so if he attacked you in the back seat, why was all the blood outside of the car? Oh,
Cue the tears. She don't. It comes and goes. These memories.
no. She's like, well, you see, the struggle occurred both inside and outside of the car.
What?
And the detectives were like, alrighty. Well, what about that there carving on your arm? You know, the word boy.
That's just art.
Ezra was like, oh, yeah.
You know, from her appreciation class.
Well, she was like, yeah, I did that to myself. So her carefully staged scene, her selective narrative, everything pointed to one inescapable truth.
She did it.
Had fabricated the victim story. She'd killed Alex and then played the part of the survivor.
Tell me she's charged.
In early April, roughly 2 weeks after Alex was found, Ezra was charged with first-degree intentional homicide by use of a dangerous weapon. The case then proceeded to a 15-day jury trial because Ezra's defense team created a new story. They wanted her first two versions that she told during her interviews to be suppressed, because they were affected by her medical condition.
What?
Because she had amnesia.
She also did that to herself.
But her defense team failed. She would be going to trial with all her lies. All the versions were soon to be exposed. During Ezra's trial in October 2019, prosecutors argued that Ezra had meticulously planned the murder. She brought a weapon from her father's home, lured Alex, and then staged the scene to appear as though she'd been attacked. They presented forensic evidence, witness testimony, and expert analysis of her self-inflicted injuries. But the version her defense used was self-defense, insisting that Ezra had acted out of fear and that the events were chaotic and that she had no intent to kill. They also tried to introduce Alex's journal entries and writings, suggesting he was possibly a threat or had violent tendencies. So that kind of piqued my curiosity. So I was like, what was he writing about in his little diary? And so they are undeniably weird, but writing weird shit is not a crime.
Mm-mm.
And as far as anyone that knows him is concerned, and the police are concerned, he never acted out on any of them. But he did write stuff about wanting to inflict pain, self-sacrifice, or suicide.
Yeah, but at least he just jotted it down.
Right. He wrote about violence. He also expressed an interest in wanting to try a bit of cannibalism.
Oh, okay.
So it's a little strange. Yeah.
Just a little.
Just a smidge. Ezra also claimed that Alex had committed self-harm and that the relationship evolved into her being made to feel uncomfortable with his sexual requests.
Oh.
Yeah. I couldn't find details on that.
Says the one who uses her arm as a doodle board.
Right? Ezra's latest version of events went like this. March 21st, she and her ex, Jason, had messaged each other more than 600 times.
In a day?
In a day.
Was it one word?
The text had a wide range of sudden emotional mood swings from Ezra.
Couldn't see that coming.
Some would be affectionate messages, followed by angry ones.
Oh,
and then,
okay. That makes more sense. 600 messages because several personalities on her end, and he had to reply to each.
He didn't even reply to each. It was just her blowing up his phone.
Hmm.
But she would go from affectionate to angry, back to apologies.
Sounds like this little lady needed some mood stabilizers.
Sure does. It was an avalanche of emotions showing a young woman in the midst of psychological chaos. The following day, so March 22nd, 2018, she drives the 50 miles from her parents' home and randomly appears at the coffee shop to ambush or stalk Jason. When he saw Ezra, she claimed she came back to Eau Claire to run some errands. She also wanted to return some of Alex's belongings and talk to him about their relationship, even though she was at the coffee shop several hours before Alex was even supposed to be there. She knew what time Jason went to the coffee shop, and she was there to see him. but she claimed she was there to see Alex.
And at no point these fellers got the inkling she might be crazy.
Guess not. Eventually, Ezra leaves the coffee shop and goes to meet Alex at his apartment. But this meeting at Alex's house wasn't quiet or private because Jason followed her there. He knew something was off. Ezra had been anxious and unpredictable, and he feared what she might say or do.
Mm-mm.
He saw that she seemed unhinged. So he rode his bike over to Alex's place. When Jason arrived, Ezra's 2003 Chevy Impala was parked outside. It was still running, and Jason was waiting. He was pacing, he was worried, and a passerby noticed this strange biker and this strange behavior, so they called the police. Officers show up, and they found Ezra sitting in the driver's seat of her own car, and Alex was standing beside her. The officer's dash cam footage actually captured the scene, and Alex was cooperative. He was calm, and he was explaining, "Yeah, I don't know why somebody called you. There's really nothing going on." Police talked to Jason, and he was just like, "Yeah, I was just concerned. They're exes. I just wanted to make sure everything went smoothly." And the police officer's like, "Okay, this is a waste of my time. Three young adults having a conversation." Seeing no danger, the officer leaves. Jason leaves. And around 1:05 p.m., Ezra and Alex decide to go for a drive somewhere to talk that would be the last time Jason Mingle would ever see his pal Alex Woodworth alive.
It's real sad.
Ezra's car got stuck in the mud on a dirt road near the farm where Ezra had turned up, but Ezra said they were unable to dislodge her car from the mud. They were stuck, alone, and in a deserted area.
So this plan just hatched itself.
hmm Ezra began suffering from severe anxiety over her car being stuck and says that Alex suggested that maybe she go ahead and just have a bit of a lie down in the back seat of the car.
Yeah. She just was squealing right in his ear hole when he was trying to get the car unstuck. And like, you know,
Just shut up and lay down. So she's like, that sounds like a great idea. So she went and laid in the back seat.
when she found a knife.
Well, then she claims that as she was laying in the back seat, that Alex jumped on top of her and began describing her in the third person, calling her a boy and saying how he deserves this, and and then she said that.
I feel like she was wrestling in the back of this car with his stuff, and he poked his head in, like, "You all right?" And then she's like, "Ah!" flying out of the car.
Yeah. She claims that he then covered her eyes and began cutting her clothes and skin with the knife.
Sure.
Ezra claimed that she was frozen with fear and she was afraid he was going to kill her. A struggle eventually ensued, and during which Alex supposedly grabbed Ezra by the throat, which I do believe he grabbed her by the throat, but I think it was in self.
Because she was stabbing him.
Right, I think it was in self-defense. And he kept ripping her hair out from her head.
Well,
Ezra was somehow able to disarm Alex, and she began to defend herself by stabbing him.
she just happened to already have a knife.
Ezra testified that after the struggle, she felt dizzy and faint, like she could not catch her breath.
I'm gonna tell you, I'm not talking to you the rest of the day if this chick isn't in the clink.
And she said that things were starting to go black at the sides. And she described that she needed to go and she needed to get out of there because she was panicking. And it was all at this point that she scratched the word boy into her arm as a reaction. She just,
What?
yeah, she speculated that it was just done to kind of wake herself up in a sense
What?
and to help her just be able to feel.
What?
Right, that was her defense for writing boy into her arm. But she testified that she really just didn't know
Is a moron?
well, the prosecutors and everybody were like, that doesn't make no sense. So why did you cut boy into your arm?
Yeah,
And
run it
she's
past us one more time because we're all scratching our heads and you're scratching things into your arms, so.
and then she's like, I really just don't know how to answer that.
Seemed like get out of here at the time.
Uh-huh. She then took the knife and Alex's phone and just walked away from the scene. Ezra remembered stumbling down the road, and she claims she fell a few times, which caused her to drop the knife. She wasn't trying to hide it. And then when she fell, Alex's phone got broken.
Okay.
That she didn't try to stash them. She wasn't trying to hide them from them
Of
police.
course not.
They just got buried in the ditch.
All these things, she's just a victim of circumstance.
Witnesses, including police, friends, roommates, and acquaintances of both Ezra and Alex, testified. Their testimonies highlighted complex, tangled relationships and inconsistent accounts of the day. Those 600 plus text messages I told you Ezra had sent Jason, and how they ranged from apologetic to clingy and to panicked and manipulative. Ezra had told Jason that she was terrified of Alex, claiming that he had been stalking her, obsessed, and wouldn't leave her alone. She wrote that, which also, in my opinion, and I'm guessing everyone else's, that proves that she's setting this up because the day before this happens, she's telling Jason that Alex is stalking her and obsessed with her. And then she's going to go with this whole he attacked me story.
Mm.
She wrote that Alex had taken advantage of her and that he was unstable.
Yeah, out of this whole story, that's the unstable person.
She also said that she feared for her safety. She portrayed herself as a traumatized woman trying to break free from a dangerous man.
Mm-hmm.
But what made the text so striking later in court was that there was no evidence that Alex had ever threatened her or harassed her at all. In fact, Alex's friends described him as cautious and emotionally shaken by Ezra's erratic behavior.
I'm emotionally shaken by her erratic behavior.
Detectives testified that the tone and volume of the messages suggested Ezra was fabricating a narrative and building a story for Jason that would justify whatever she was about to do. Where it became a bit confusing for the jury, or for really people like us trying to sit back and figure out what actually happened that fatal day in March, were Ezra's injuries. Several experts for both the state and defense testified about Ezra's injuries. More specifically, whether the injuries were in fact self inflicted or inflicted by another person. She had bruises on her neck consistent with having been strangled. The injuries on her hands and forearms were consistent with defensive wounds. The location of Ezra's injuries could have been fatal if the cuts had been deeper. So there was definitely like if she did it to herself, it was,
She should have pushed harder.
well, if he had done it fighting her, he could have easily killed her, but they were superficial wounds.
Well, who sits still to be carved?
Right? There was also testimony presented about Alex's injuries, and the forensic evidence that was collected from the scene included both Alex and Ezra's blood and various locations in and around the car. Both Ezra and Alex's DNA were also found on the knife. There was, in fact, a wad of Ezra's hair found on the floor of the back seat of the car. A psychologist also testified that he diagnosed Ezra with post traumatic stress disorder,
That's not the diagnosis she needs.
childhood onset, and persistent depressive disorder with anxious distress. He further explained that Ezra's statements during her interviews with law enforcement were consistent with those diagnoses, including intrusive thoughts and avoidance symptoms and disassociation and regression, which explained why she gave the emergency responders her birth name. He also testified that the self cutting could be a trauma response. I was like, sure.
Mm-hmm.
The jury had to decide, did Alex attack Ezra, inflicting all these injuries, and she actually successfully defended herself, or had Ezra ambushed Alex and sustained some of her injuries while attacking him, and then she inflicted some slicing and dicing to herself?
That one.
She already had admitted to carving boy into her arm. Throughout the trial, Ezra maintained her composure, sometimes calm, sometimes emotional, a stark contrast to the terror she displayed the day that she appeared at the farmhouse. What it would really come down to was who was more likely to have attacked first, Alex or Ezra? And was Ezra's version of events even plausible? After days of deliberation, the jury found her guilty of first-degree intentional homicide. In February 2020, victim impact statements underscored the loss, grief, and pain suffered by Alex's family. Ezra McCandless was sentenced to life in prison with the possibility of parole after 50 years.
Possibility?
Did I say possibility?
You did. I wasn't sure if you were hungry. You need some carbs?
So, since her conviction, Ezra has filed appeals and motions for post conviction relief, some of which have been denied. As of 2025, she remains incarcerated at the Tay-Cheetah Correctional Institute in Fond du Lac, Wisconsin.
Tay-Cheetah.
Tay-Cheetah. Tay.
It's a weird name for a lady facility.
Uh-huh. Since her incarceration, Ezra has reportedly used some of her time in custody to do sketches and sell them online.
Who wants that garbage?
Other crazy people. We began the story seeing a girl in terror, a victim begging for help. We walked with her through the fog of trauma, the
What?
uncertainty. Shut up. We walked with her through the fog of trauma, the uncertainty, the desperation, and then the truth hit. A stark inversion of everything we had believed. Ezra was not hunted, she was the hunter. She used narrative, emotion, and perception to manipulate everyone around her. She transformed from the image of a survivor into the reality of a killer. This case forces us to question assumptions, to see the tension between appearances and reality, to confront the darkness that hid behind a familiar face. And in the end, it reminds us in true crime, the story you hear first is not always the story that is true. And also, the reason I decided not to use her selected pronouns, she also chose to use she and her pronouns during her trial. So if she can do it, I can do it.
All right.
I feel like that would have been so much more confusing if every time I had to say she, I said they. You'd been like, what?
She was very confused.
She was. She was a very emotional young lady. Oh, you want to see a picture? Okay. I'm going to send you a picture. I made it a collage, but they're all three of her.
Each one of her personalities.
Mm-hmm. I'm sure there's more. And then I'm going to send you one of Alex.
Well, at first I thought that was another one of her. I'm like, ooh.
And then this is her ex, Jason.
So for Ezra, the one on the left looks like she farted.
Yeah. She's testifying in that bottom picture where she's smirking. I don't know what she finds funny.
She looks crazy.
Yeah. She's got her septum pierced.
I'm surprised they let her have that in there. Oh, well, no, that's not in a...
Mm-mm. That top picture is the version that the boy folks were all fighting over. But that is Ezra McCandless, and she is a crazy lady.
Mm-hmm. Sure done diddly is.
But that's all I got.
Thank you for listening to Homicide Hobbies. I'm Claire.
I'm Andy.
Follow us each week to get your fix of the atrocities that occur in true crime. And don't forget to tell people about us and rate us if you like us. But don't rate us if you didn't. Just change the channel.